Staying with the Monday Report, let's get straight into it. And joining us live is Devolution CS Honorable Eugene Wamalwa. Honorable, thank you so much for making time for us and for being patient to get to this conversation that we're just about to have. So let's start with the crisis in Chesogon right now as we speak. What are you doing for the people of Chesogon who are now homeless? Is there a plan to resettle them?
Thank you very much, Trevor, and our condolences to the families that have lost their dear ones. We have been in constant touch with RC Natembeya, who's coordinating the operation there, working very, very closely with the leadership of the two county governments of West Pokot and Elgeyo Marakwet, and our colleagues from national government, including our PS, Mika Powon, and our CS, Lina JB Kilimo, who are all on the ground working together with Natembeya. So far, the figure confirmed is 12 dead and over 22 missing. And the operations are still ongoing. And as of this evening, the Regional Commissioner Natembeya has confirmed that there was a young girl, a university student, who was saved after hours of search. And we are very, very grateful. And we wish quick recovery to all those who are in hospital and who suffered injuries. On behalf of national government, we have moved in immediately to give support to the affected families in terms of bringing them relief, getting them food and non-food items. And we want to thank all those who have worked around the clock since this tragedy happened, including the Red Cross team that are on the ground, with the county teams and the national teams that are on the ground. And we want to assure them of continued support of not just food, but also non-food items and all the support that we can give the families for now. Those who have been displaced in Chesogon, Trevor, I want to assure them that everything will be done to ensure that those families receive the necessary support. And as the RC indicated yesterday, what needs to be done immediately is at least to get them a place where they will be able to receive this support. And after the operation, we will then move to the next phase of supporting these families. Thank you.
CS, do we have a place for them right now as we speak?
As we speak, we have a command center on the ground in a primary school, and the families are going to receive support temporarily from that place. But going forward, and after the operation has ended, just as the way we did in West Pokot, after we had the landslide tragedy late last year, we have been able to give the families support. And we are working closely with the county government of West Pokot. And I must thank Professor Lonyango Paul, who has provided leadership on this matter, together with the Red Cross. The donations that they received and the support, both from national government in terms of building materials. First is the relief in terms of food, blankets, and a place to be. Then it is the recovery stage, where we are now looking at rehabilitation of those families. In West Pokot, we're in that stage now, and through Red Cross, houses have been built. And in fact, we were preparing to go down to now start resettling these families. But for what has happened now, we'll have to go through the process, a similar process as what was there in West Pokot. And ours for tonight is to assure every family and every Kenyan affected in this tragedy that they are not on their own. The national government is going to give them all the necessary support. And we must thank the county governments, the two county governments, to thank Governor Togos, Senator Murkomen, and the entire leadership of Elgeyo Marakwet County. Thank Professor Lonyanga Paul, Governor Pogisho, and all the leadership of West Pokot County for coming out strongly and working together with these families and closely with the national government to deal with this tragedy so far.
CS, there's been a warning of flash floods in different places, and I have a report here from Rosa Buyu, who's the woman representative for Kisumu. She says, kindly thank the CS for having recently paid a visit to the flooded areas of Kisumu County, like Nyakach and Nyando sub-counties, and for availing foodstuff to help the affected victims. However, the current situation is almost unbearable to the people living in these areas, with extremely high water levels leading to flooding and actual marooning of homes. Even with the restrictions of Corona, I think the government must focus on more lasting solutions, like putting up strong dikes to act as barriers between the raging waters and the people's homes. The impassable roads will only dampen food security, as farmers are actually unable to get their farms to harvest food produce. Do you have any lasting solutions? That's a question from Rosa Buyu, women representative Kisumu.
Yes, Trevor, and I must thank Honorable Rosa Buyu for working very, very closely with us. I was there just a few days ago, and I thank Professor Nyang'nyong and the county leadership of Kisumu. My good friend Jared, the Nyando MP, we were able to move to the areas that were affected. And we had already given earlier warnings that with the rains coming, with the water levels in Lake Victoria rising, the families living around Nyando, Muhoroni, all the way to Nyatike, to Budalangi, and parts of Funyola, Samia, are going to be affected. We were there to give them support in terms of food and non-food items, because the families have been displaced. But also, we have had dikes in that area. In fact, Trevor, you haven't had Mama Serikali's idea for a while, because we were able to build dikes around that area that have been holding. But as we speak now, the water levels are rising. His Excellency the President had already directed a team under the leadership of the Water CS that is now looking at the phenomenon of the rising water levels of Lake Victoria. And we're not just talking about the Kenyan side. When you look at Entebbe, the other side of the lake, Uganda is equally affected, and it is something that we want to look at both in the short term and in terms of long-term solutions. And part of that actually is just not building the dikes in Nyando and Budalangi. Part of it is building the dam that has been under the works for quite a while now, the Soin Koru Dam. This was a dam that was designed by colonialists way back in 1952 to tame the waters of River Nyando so that we do not have this flooding perennially. For Budalangi, the dikes have been built. The Lower Nzoia irrigation project is underway, and that will be able to tame, and as we speak, the waters of River Nzoia have been tamed. But the backflow from the lake, because of the silting, is really the biggest challenge now. And we want to assure the people of Kisumu County, the people of Busia County, that even as we are looking at the Elgeyo Marakwet, as well as the West Pokot tragedy, we are not going to take off our eyes from the lake region, and we will continue with the support that we have committed. And but for now, our full focus is on West Pokot and Elgeyo Marakwet.
All right.
And we want to assure the two counties that we will be having our people on the ground and support continuing until the situation normalizes. But today also, Trevor, I must say that it was absolutely necessary that we make it clear to Kenyans that what is happening in West Pokot and what is happening in Elgeyo Marakwet or in Kisumu can happen in Murang'a, can happen in Garissa, can happen in Tana River because of the ongoing long rain season. This happened last year, and we have asked today that all those Kenyans who are living in flood-prone, landslide-prone areas must heed the warnings of the experts. They must listen to their government, listen to their county leadership, and when you are asked to move, know that we have had expert guidance on the matter, and they say prevention is better than cure. Wanasema heri kinga kuliko tiba. And this is what we're trying to see done in the process. And with my colleagues, Dr. Fred Matiang'i, CS Keter, and CS Tobiko, We visited the Kenya meteorological department today.
Yeah.
And Trevor, I was very, very impressed at the level of expertise that is in this institution, the level of equipment. And in Africa, actually, it is the top institution that is both serving not just Kenya, not just the region, but the entire Africa and the world.
Okay.
So the expertise they have put into this, they have been able to develop very serious early warning systems.
Yeah.
And when they give that prediction, it is not the way it was in our days when we were growing up with Ngwata Francis, when he would say, kutakuwa na manyunyu hapa na pale. But they are very accurate. Even the situation happening now in West Pokot and in Elgeyo Marakwet, warnings had been given a week earlier. Last year, you do remember, even before the West Pokot tragedy, information had been shared. And what we want to urge is that this information that is given by experts, let us please take it seriously and let us work with our county commissioners and our governors to ensure that we prevent recurrence of similar tragedies in future.
CS, but the main question has always been, where do they go? These warnings might come, but they have nowhere to go. Where do they go?
I was in Tana River, Trevor, and Tana River is a flood-prone area. With the support of Red Cross, His Excellency the President directed $1 billion shillings to go to Red Cross, and Red Cross was able to rebuild houses. When we were on the ground, it is now known where the water will be, where the water will reach. And we are having changes, and I must thank Governor Godana in Tana River, because they are now mapping out areas where we have higher ground, so that families can actually live in the higher ground and be able to still farm on the lower ground. This can actually be emulated by the other counties. And we are not saying that government must come and tell you, move for you to move. You can actually move to higher ground and still farm in the lower ground and still be safe. This is what we are urging, and it will not take the government to do it, it will take the people themselves. Now that we know where the water floods every year in out, we surely know as night follows day that it will flood in Budalangi, it will flood in Nyando, it will flood in Tana River, and the areas are now known, especially when you go out during this long rain season. It is very clear, and we want to work with the county governments so that we now develop that resilience, we map out these areas, and we prevent what is preventable. Thank you.
Okay. CS, there are many people who sent in their questions for you. I want to bring up the first one so that you can respond to them live. Let's bring up the first question.
Thank you.
Slide.
Mambo ya chakula tulinunua, tukaweka kwa nyumba, sasa zimeisha. Na ndipo sasa inabidi tufungue kazi ndio tuweze kutafuta chakula tena. Wajiri walibomoa yote wakamaliza.
Kwa vile sasa hata maisha sasa imekuwa ngumu, tunaona hata kupata chakula ya lunch peke yake inakuwa shida. Hata pengine wewe mzazi unaweza kutoka kwa nyumba asubuhi mpaka saa hii hujaonja hata kitu chenye inaitwa kukula. Na watoto pia uko nayo, au pia watoto wanataka kukula.
What exact metric is the Ministry of Devolution using to determine who the vulnerable people are? Is it by use of income, or is it geographical location, or by looking at the people who have been hard hit by the coronavirus? And again, what strategies are there to ensure that we don't experience the commotion we've already seen in terms of distributing the relief foods?
CS?
Thank you very much. For the vulnerable populations of our country, this is information that government has. It is also information that the county governments have shared. And we have already mapped out the country, and it is known where the vulnerable populations are, their limited income. And we also have the census data that has been used to be able to identify these vulnerable populations. And this is one area that we are working on as we speak. We have already had systems in place where these vulnerable populations have been supported through cash transfer systems. We had the Inua Jamii system through the Ministry of Labor that has been supporting these families, the elderly, the persons with disabilities, and other vulnerable populations. Under our ministry also, we have had the Hunger Safety Net, where we have been supporting very, very vulnerable families.
Yeah.
So as we speak, we do know where the vulnerable are. The basis for identification has already been put in place.
Yeah.
What we are urging now is that anyone wishing to support the families affected in terms of food or any support in kind, we are asking the Good Samaritans to channel this through the government processes and agencies.
This
what will prevent scenarios such as we have seen.
Yeah, so sorry to interrupt you. What you're wondering here is what are the matrices that you've used to identify someone who's vulnerable? Is it the amount of income? And if it is income, how much? How do I know that I'm vulnerable and this other person is not?
Yeah, we have the system in place, Trevor, as I have said. From the census, it is known in terms of which areas, what populations are affected. And we also have global standards in terms of food rationing that we are able to apply. So all these have been worked out, and this has been worked between national government with the county governments in identifying those vulnerables. So we have been able to do that, and as we speak, I was just saying we have the system that has been in place before. For relief food, we've only been applying this when we have disasters such as this to distribute food literally and physically to the populations such as the flood-prone areas.
Yeah.
But for the system that we are putting in place now, we will be using the cash transfer system.
Yeah.
His Excellency the President indicated that already the piloting was starting, and we want to assure Kenyans that we will be able to reach them and to support them.
Yeah.
Both levels of government will be working very, very closely.
Yes, Kenyans prefer figures of some sort. So if I make 100 shillings per day, or if I make 2,000 shillings per month, am I considered vulnerable? What figure are we using here, just for transparency purposes?
I think these are the details that are now going to be announced once we roll out this system. But of course, those who live below the poverty line are known, and those who are vulnerable have already been assessed and identified through the systems that we have, including our chiefs, our assistant chiefs, our nyumba kumis. So government has all the necessary information and data. So what we are looking at is how to mobilize the resources and to channel these resources to the deserving cases that are really, really vulnerable. So it is a matter that within the next few weeks, all the details would be available. But for now, it is a process that we're putting in place.
Yeah.
But even as we do this, to ensure we have cash transfers to the vulnerable, to cushion them against the adversities of the challenges we are facing today.
Okay.
We will also be going on with the normal government programs, such as what we are doing in West Pokot, in Kisumu, in terms of providing relief food to the disaster victims. We also have the locusts, areas affected by locusts.
Yeah.
So the programs under the Ministry of Agriculture will still be going on, even as we're dealing with COVID.
Okay.
And the situation that is facing our country, and not just our country and our continent, but the whole world.
All right. CS, there's still more questions for you. Let's bring up another question.
Which criteria is being used to come up with new vulnerable cases, apart from the traditionally accredited ones that are the orphans and the elderly? We know that due to the COVID-19 pandemic, very many have lost their jobs, including those in the hospitality sector. We also have many from the matatu sector and even other sectors of the economy.
CS?
Thank you very much. This pandemic that we're facing is not a local one, it's a global one. And we're not just talking of a health crisis, we're also talking of an economic crisis. And that is why you saw His Excellency the President form different committees. And we have a committee that is looking at the issue of food security and the issues of the counties. That is the committee that CS Munya and I and other colleagues are working on with the counties to cushion the affected populations in terms of food issues.
Yeah.
But also we have the economic team, and this one is led by CS Yatani. And on every committee, we have the counterpart from the county governments, where we are now looking at those economic issues and working on an economic stimulus that we must thank our parliamentarians for responding to His Excellency the President's plea that we have these in place to cushion Kenyans.
Yeah.
Apart from that, we also have the health one, that has very ably been led by our colleague CS Mutai Kagwe, that we are looking at how we can work with the counties to help give them capacity to deal with the health crisis. So we are looking at, it's a multi-pronged approach.
Yeah.
And we also want to thank our development partners. Apart from working with the counties, we have our partners also with the same pillars, looking at how we can cushion the small SMEs, looking at how we can also help the county have more capacity.
CS, do you have a figure? Because that is the concern for most Kenyans. What is criteria you using to have the newly vulnerable teams or the suddenly unemployed? Because those who are not captured in the census that you're talking about, do you have the numbers of those who've lost their jobs and now suddenly need help from the government?
Yes, those are the numbers that we have formed committees that are specifically looking at the different areas. And under the economic committee, we also have the CS Labor, my colleague Simon Chelugui. And he's basically looking at the issues of unemployment, those who have lost jobs, and those who have lost businesses. So we have different teams addressing all aspects of these challenges that we are facing. Okay. So food is only one of the aspects we are facing.
Okay.
Health is only one of the issues. But as I said, it's not just a health crisis. It's also an economic crisis, a financial crisis. And with the support of our partners, we are looking at all these issues and we are addressing them simultaneously as we move along. Thank you.
All right, let's bring up another question for CS.
Derek Ngenzi from Kitui County. Ask the CS Eugene Wamalwa, what are the plans for the government to ensure that vulnerable people at the grassroots level benefit from the government support so that they don't suffer? Thank you.
CS?
Thank you very much. Our priority, first of all, is to work with the counties so that we are able to reach those populations that have been affected by this pandemic. And I must thank Chairman Oparanya and the Council of Governors for working very, very closely with the national government. When you listen to the last statement issued by His Excellency the President, we are now giving more support to the counties, because when we started, we just had about 4 or 5 counties affected. But as we speak, we have more counties that have also been affected by cases of corona across the country. And now we want to give them more capacity. His Excellency the President announced a support of over 5 billion going to these counties so that we're able to reach those who are affected in the counties. The counties have also on their own done quite a bit in terms of supporting those who are affected. And we will be giving them more support as we move along so that no Kenyan is left behind in this pandemic. Thank you.
All right, let's bring up another question for CS.
Good evening, Trevor. My name is Jabali from Ngong. I want to ask the CS to tell the Kenyans, is there any food in strategic stores in this country to help the poor and the more vulnerable, especially in these particular pandemic times? Thank you.
CS.
Thank you very much, Jabali. As you know, a decision was made recently to merge the strategic food reserve with the NCPB. There are reforms that are ongoing, but what we want to assure Kenyans is that we have enough food in the country as we speak, and we will be supporting Kenyans who are affected, and through what system we are putting in place, we will, instead of physically distributing food to every county that is affected, we will be working through the system that we're establishing of cash transfers, and we will be able to put money in the pockets or the households that are affected for them to be able to purchase food. But we also want to say that just as a matter of taking the necessary precautions, the CS in charge of agriculture is already moving to import an extra 2 million bags of white maize through the millers so that we are able to stabilize the prices of unga, and we will also be having yellow maize for animal feed, so that we are able to also continue availing enough food in the country. So that, I want to assure you, is something that we are looking at very, very keenly, the issue of ensuring there's sufficient food in the country so that every Kenyan is cushioned against these adversities.
All right, CS, stay with me. There are still more questions coming through for you right after the break. They are varied. They're from the floods issues to the food issue. We'll pose them to you right after the break. Kindly stay with us.